Why does God allow bad things to happen to good people? Hi, I'm Father Charles, and welcome to my channel. That is one of the most commonly asked questions that I've heard numerous times. Why does God allow bad things to happen to good people? Okay. The easiest way to look at that is like this. In that question, a person is assuming that either themselves are good or somebody they believe to be good is a good person. But that's not the way Scripture looks at things. Truth be told, according to God's standard, God himself decides what good is. And so when somebody asks the question, why does God allow bad things to happen to good people? Oftentimes what they're saying is, why does God allow bad things to happen to me? Okay. And also what they may be doing is this. See, when we for ourselves decide what we believe is good and we develop our own standard of goodness and bad, essentially what we are doing is we're taking the place of God. Okay, and here's how. God, being God, has the right to determine how creation should be and how creation should react. Now, he gives us all free will. We do have free will, those that are in a place of health and those kind of things. There comes a time when free will is challenged. Okay, there does come a time for that. But for the most part, we all have free will. But through it all, we also have to recognize that God has established this reality in a specific kind of way. There are certain rules that are in place that are, well, pretty much concrete. Example, gravity. Okay, gravity is gravity wherever you go. Now, there's going to be less gravity in different places, but at the same time, gravity is still going to be gravity wherever gravity exists. So on Earth, there is gravity. And if you live on Earth, you're going to experience how it feels to deal with gravity. If you throw something up, it's going to come down until you get so far away from it. If you choose to go or able to go to the moon, you're still going to experience gravity there. It's going to pull you towards the moon. Well, that's a law that God put in place. Okay, so being that that's a law that God put in place, we're all subject to that law. When it comes to human beings, God gives us free will, and we can choose to do certain things or choose not to do certain things. In other words, we can choose to listen to God, or we can choose not to listen to God, while at the same time, we for the most part can't choose not to interact with gravity. Gravity is here. Now, we can get on a plane and fly and all those kinds of things, but at the same time, gravity is still consistent. And so now, since God is the author of the things that we don't think about, for instance, the fact that light, for the most part, doesn't have a weight. Now, I'm not a scientist, but for the most part, light doesn't have a weight, and maybe there's some scientists that determine that it does. But the fact that light doesn't have a weight, or minimal weight, that's a law that God wrote into place. Or the fact that rocks have a specific weight to them depending on what kind of rock they are, that's a law that God put in place. So when we start to ask the question, why does God allow bad things to happen to good people? We have to be careful that we're not taking the place of God and trying to impose our own rule on what we think right is versus what God says the right is. And in doing so, and in acknowledging God, being God, what's essentially happening is this. When we give God his place, it makes it easier for us to kind of contemplate certain things and to put things in their proper perspective. But when we start to put ourselves in a place of God and we start to determine what is good and what is not, then it becomes deeply problematic for us. So, are you a good person? Well, you probably have good things that you've done in your life, and I imagine all of us have. But at the same time, according to God's standard, we've all fallen short of his goodness. Therefore, though we have good in us, ultimately all of us deserve to actually be punished and be put in hell. But it is because of his goodness that we can rely on him and rely on Christ's work on the cross and not be sent to hell. So that being said, there's only one person that I can think of who was good that something bad happened to, and that being Jesus Christ. That being when he went to the cross, when he died, when he experienced all the tortures that he experienced on that awful, awful day when he went to the cross. And despite the fact he was on the cross, he still prayed, my God, why have thou forsaken me? And he also prayed that we may be forgiven, or that those who were there could be forgiven because they did not know what they were doing. And so despite the fact that he was experiencing that bad day, he still prayed. He still prayed for all of us. And so Christ experienced a bad day so that we don't have to experience a bad eternity, essentially. So the question isn't, why does God allow bad things to happen to good people? A better question is, why does God allow good things to happen to bad people? If you change the question around and flip it upside down like that, what that enables you to do is to realize, despite the fact that you've made some decisions that probably weren't so good, God still allowed good things to happen in your life. And that brings you to a place of worship and appreciation for the good things that happen in life. It's kind of like the glass being half empty or the glass being half full. If you see the glass as half full, well, then you can appreciate what is in the glass versus what is not in the glass. And so that is the reason why that question shouldn't be asked. And that is also the reason why God doesn't allow bad things to happen to good people. God allows good things to happen to bad people. And when God did allow a bad thing to happen to a good person, it was for your good. I'm Father Charles, and have a wonderful day.